In this video, we're going to be looking at curve-driven patterns inside of Autodesk Inventor. Now, a curve-driven pattern is not a command we see inside of our ribbon interface at the top of the screen. Really, the only pattern tool we see is rectangular and circular. You don't really think of a curve-driven pattern. So where do I find this option? It's actually inside the rectangular command. So therefore, I really feel rectangular is a little bit of a misnomer. I would really want rectangular to be called something else like direction-driven pattern, or just call it pattern and drop rectangular off. There's some special settings in there where we can do some really fancy pattern type interactions. However, I'm going to begin by just placing a feature that I would like to pattern. We'll take a look at this design example here on curve-driven 1. Here I have an arc on the bottom of this particular design, and I would like to have a hole that patterns along the curvature of this arc that is currently 60 millimeters long by its arc length. So I'm going to begin by adding my hole. I'll choose our hole command. I want this to be 8 millimeters, and I'll choose to place it on this center. Choose OK. So now I have the hole created. However, I would like to get that arc back so I can use it. So I will go to my model browser and turn on the visibility of my Sketch 9. Now I'll begin the rectangular command, select my feature. For my direction, 1, I'm going to pick the arc. So nothing about that directional arc is linear. It's very much a curve, but we can select it as a direction. I want 5 of these, and for the option for the spacing distance, I'm actually going to hit the pull down arrow here and choose curve length instead. What this will do is measure the length of that curve, which here happens to be 60 millimeters, and it spaces them evenly. However, you're probably noticing that the preview is just all kinds of wrong. The start point for this direction is over here at the end of the arc. I really want it to start down here and to flip it around. So maybe we'll try the flip option on direction 1. And that worked out perfectly. I'll choose OK, and I now have 5 holes spaced along that arc, evenly spaced. I'm going to turn off the visibility of Sketch 9. Now what if it wasn't that real complex? Let's take a look at this one on the top here. Here I would like to do a pattern around the center of this part of this particular item. So let's take a look at what happens when we do a circular pattern. Here if I grab my features, the fillets and the extrusion, and then my rotation axis around here by picking the outside of that larger cylinder. Let's say I want 4 of them. Now we can see in the preview that it is rotating them as it goes around. Well, maybe my design criteria says I do not want them to be rotated as they go around. I want them to stay in the same orientation. And currently that's not happening. If I expand my chevrons under circular pattern, I see no option to keep it identical to the original orientation. So circular pattern here actually does not work for me. I'm going to choose cancel, and instead I'm going to do a curve-driven pattern with the rectangular command. Now, right now I don't really have a nice reference for a curve on this. If I were to choose the outside of this curve here or the inside of the curve here, it becomes based on that curve, and it may not give us the exact result that we want. So let's take a look at that first to see if we get lucky. We'll try a rectangular. We'll grab our features. For our direction, I'll choose this top circular edge here. Notice how it has the starting point way over here on this guy, and that's really not working out. How about if I try a flip? Well, it's still not quite working out. Let me change it to curve length. Let me tell it I want 4. And you can tell that this is just still all kinds of wrong. Well, maybe if I expand my chevrons, I'd have another alternative. Here, if I click on direction 1, I can change the starting point to another location. However, I need a piece of geometry to snap it onto, and I just don't have that. So what I really like to do with rectangular patterns using a curve length is actually to draw in my own curve as a sketch. So I'll start on the top of this and create a new sketch here and project some of my geometry and draw a circle. Choose OK and finish my sketch. I'll try rectangular again. Grab my features. I'll choose my direction, this time the circular piece here. We'll pick our starting direction, the center of that projected geometry. We'll choose curve length, so it gets the amount that I have there. And I say I want 4 of them. Notice now the orientation of this little cutout here is being identical to the original shape. I'll choose OK to that. And there's my curve-driven pattern for that set of features. Now sometimes your geometry is a little bit more difficult than even this. So I'm going to open up another file from our working files directory, curve-driven2. And this is a very similar looking part. However, it has this kind of cam shape out here. It's a lot larger, if you will. And what I have going on right now, just to kind of set the stage, is a cutout that's going into the side of this. I also have a sketch on here with a work point that's going to be my directional start point, much like the center of that set of features in the last example. So here I'll start rectangular again. I'll grab my feature, that cutout on the inside, as well as the fillets that are in there. Direction 1, I'll choose this sketch that I have. Notice how it grabbed the entire loop, but my directional point is down here for the start. That's not what I want. So I'll expand my chevrons, choose direction 1, and respecify that to be based on this work point. I'll change my spacing here to curve length, and let's say how many we want. Let's try 24 on this one. Now the spacing here looks pretty good. However, you can tell the orientation is completely wrong. It's actually keeping an identical orientation, but what I really want is it to follow the curve orientation. So down here in the lower area of the command, I can change orientation from the identical orientation to a directional control-based condition, so it's normal to direction 1. So as it goes around here, it's maintaining that same amount of curvature and the same amount of direction as the first feature element. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to choose OK. And there's a little bit more advanced pattern going around that.